Shane, we talked about the farming, the ranching, a little bit about your history, but I think people who found us here on YouTube, a ton of people found us on YouTube from your bee videos. So Shane is our resident bee expert here at the ranch. So Shane, give us the whole rundown on the bees. So I guess let's start with, how did you first get interested in the bees, and what kind of prompted you to get started, and then how did you get started?
Good question. It's not really, I don't know one thing that did it. I will preference it with saying that I know most bee people are weird, but I'm not weird. Yeah, we can clear the air with that. Or different. But I remember as a kid, we had this big oak tree that was 2-3 foot in diameter in the front yard. And I remember this old man, and I have to get the name from Dad. We would have bees that just swarmed and would land on the basketball goal or a small tree to the side. And Dad would call this guy out, and he would come in a pickup, and he would have a trash can and looked like a sheet sewn together. And he would put it underneath there and shake the bees. They'd all fall in it. And then he'd say, okay, no problem. Call me next time it happens. And we did that enough that I remember. And we eventually learned it was inside. They were being generated from that oak tree. That's where they lived and would spread out from, is what now I know. But so between that and then a couple years ago, we had this water meter that bees kept living there and would produce honey, and we'd call this guy to come out and get it. And he would like say, check this out. And he'd give us some of the honey. And I'm like, that is so cool. So that summer, which was 4 years ago or 3 years ago, I would head to Colorado, and you need 12 hours of something to do if you can get out of driving going to Colorado. So I spent 10 hours on YouTube Googling beekeeping and everything. And I don't know how many hours I logged on that trip, but I learned enough that I was very interested in bees. So I came back, and that was during July, and you get bees in April or May is where you get them. So I had to keep going through YouTube videos until I bought the first 12 hives of 3 years ago. And those 12 I turned into 24. And I thought, man, this is so cool. The next year I turned those 24 into 30 to 40. And at that point I had to change, because in the beginning when you have 12, you're like, I can look at everyone and do all this stuff. And because we're short time and everything, between family, work, everything, I had to start managing them as a whole instead of each individual hive. This is Marley. If y'all haven't met Marley, Marley was, it was my daughter's dog and wife's dog, but I seem to spend most of the time with Marley now. And so Marley loves attention. Nope, sit down. Nope, sit down. But back to the story is, I started managing them as one whole unit instead of an individual hive. So the problem is, and Bryson's going to ask it because he hears it and he promotes it, is my wife always, her concern is not the work or how many times you get stung or what you had to do today with the bees. She just wants a jar of honey so she can have a jar of honey. And it's like most just say, where's the honey? There's none of the, oh, what did it take to get it? But the problem is I've had bees for 3 years now. So that means I've had to say for 3 years, we don't have honey yet. And I explain it the same way every year, but it's worth repeating here. So maybe we can reference this video next year if we have to. So in bees, they can either propagate and split and make more bees. It's unique how they do it. Or if they're left alone to their own devices, they know they need to store up to make it through the winter.
Right. I think, so clarify on that for people, because I think a lot of people don't know what is honey to the bees. Why do bees make honey? Because I think a lot of people think bees make honey for us, but why are bees making honey in general?
Bees have this ability to grab nectar out of every plant or bloom that there is, most of them, and they turn it into, they add their enzymes and they throw it in this cone that they build, and it's dried out so that their whole purpose is to plan for the winter. They know it's coming. They know how much they need. They'll downsize to fit their food sources, but their whole goal is to get food for the winter. So what humans have learned to do is say, listen, you made 80 pounds, or in Texas, maybe 40 pounds. We're going to leave you 20. We're going to take 20, or you take most of it and you feed them a supplement, sugar, a winter candy, or people do all kinds of stuff. But you take what they thought they were going to use for the winter and use it for yourself and give them something to make it through the winter.
So I guess there's two sides of the coin, right? You can either let the hives, you call it splitting, right? So I think there's a process where you go in there and they can either make a queen or you can give them a new queen. Is that right?
Right.
So you can either split the hives with the hopes of one day having more hives that produce honey, or you can, I guess you could call it, putting those hives into service for honey, right?
Right.
And so what you've chosen to do over the last 3 years is to get your overall number of hives to a place where when you decide it's time to do honey, that you still have some hives that can be split with a decent amount of honey production.
That's correct.
So are you going to send people the video of me saying that when they ask where the honey is?
Yes. That's the easiest thing.
What's really funny is we make the videos about the honey and the bees. We make them across all of social media and on YouTube. Most people probably don't know because they see my bee videos. My two greatest fears in life is sharks and like any kind of flying, stinging insect. So for the longest time, and we're talking irrational fears. Like you will not find me in water where I can't see my toes, and flying, stinging things, I'm probably going to run and not be involved. But it's really cool. The bees it's fascinating, I guess, how advanced they are. I think a lot of people think of them as bugs, flies, things like that. But the level of sophistication to see those bees create that comb, I mean, they'll create combs so perfect that you couldn't take a pencil and draw it at the level of precision that they do. So it's really fascinating. And then you listen to Shane talk about how they know if they lose a queen, they can make a new queen, and there's all these different roles within the hive. It's really, really cool to see. So I guess tell everybody what the hardest part of getting into that was, and maybe what you've learned. And then for the aspiring at-home beekeepers out there, give them Shane's word of wisdom. Aside from don't, we'll skip that one. And we'll just say, assuming that they made it over that threshold, what are the words of wisdom you have for the aspiring beekeepers?
If you watch YouTube, and there's a lot of guys that cater to the beginner, and every one of them across the board says, just do it. Because you can read, you can study, and you can do all this stuff. You just doing it and learning, because we all are going to mess up. Experience is invaluable. You can't get past it. And to get experience, you're going to mess up no matter what you do. So you buy a couple hives, you get 2 to compare or 3 to compare, and you may mess up the first time. Find somebody that can mentor you. You can ask questions if you're not sure, or really YouTube. You can learn anything off of YouTube nowadays. So get the basics off of it, or find somebody that's willing to answer questions a couple times a week and just get started in it. And you're going to learn. I've done stuff that I thought, this is a great idea, and I'm short 10 hives now, and I'm like, well, that wasn't such of a great idea. But the only way you're going to learn that and realize you can graft or you can split your own hives is just doing it.
Yeah, and it's a lot more work, I think, than a lot of people want to sign up for, right?
It is. Your back is going to be sore. I've talked to a guy that does a lot of honey. He uses, they're called the hives that are horizontal hives that are chest high. They're making them now. There's a couple guys on the internet they build them to sell, but you're not lifting boxes that are at ground level over and over. It's a simple door. Somebody will comment and say, my gosh, you didn't know it? It's called this. But I've seen those hives, and I think that is a way to go forward if you're old like me and your back is broke down. That you're not lifting boxes over and over.
Yeah, that's one of the things when I volunteer to go video, I try to do at least one or two things so I can video myself helping, because I don't like to just video myself standing out there with a camera. But everything you do is you're bending over and just trying to, either picking up the box, you're pulling out a frame, you're putting patties in. It's just, so I think that could use some improvements. But the bees are really fascinating, and I guess if all the people who have a, backlog orders of honey from you, if we have a surplus of honey, that would be cool to be able to offer that here with everything else we do. We may get there, we may not, but the videos, especially on YouTube, I think a lot of people are interested in bees, so they do really well on YouTube anytime we post anything about the bees.
There's a lot of guys that make a good living off of YouTube and their bees.